It is May the 13th, 2008, and firefighters are desperately trying to put out a building fire. But not just any fire, but one in a reinforced concrete high-rise building on a university campus. It's been burning since the morning, and luckily no one is still inside. Regardless, many gather to watch the burning building. But at around 3:45 PM, the building collapsed, crashing partially to the ground, blasting debris, concrete and steel all around the building's base. Now, concrete and steel building failures due to fire are a very rare occurrence. But this building, as I mentioned, was on a university campus, and guess what the subject this building was in charge of? Well, ironically, it was the architectural department structure. But what was the cause? Well, sit back, relax and watch the video to find out. Today we'll be looking at the University of Delft architecture building fire and subsequent collapse. My name is John and welcome to Plainly Difficult. This video wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for my YouTube, Patreon and Ko-fi members. If you want early access to the channel's videos, then you can from just £1 per month. And as always, the links are in the pinned comment below. Background. So our story begins long before 2008, way back in the mid-1960s, with plans being drawn up for a new building at the Delft Institute of Technology in the Netherlands. The university's history goes way back to the mid-19th century, but that's a bit too far for our video. Anywho's, a new building was deemed needed for the university in the 1960s, and an architectural firm named Van den Broek and Camus, located in Rotterdam, Netherlands, was contracted to draw up this new structure. The idea was to have a large building to house the architectural department, as well as public use spaces. This included a library, an auditorium, some exhibition halls and a canteen. The building consisted of a reinforced concrete 13-storey tall structure, sat atop 6 3-storey structures. This gave the building a very striking look of a tower block hovering over the semi-independent smaller buildings below. Now, the 3-storey buildings had one shared level below grade, with each building's other 2 above grade. I think I kind of explained that correctly. Regardless, it gave the outward appearance of separate structures, even though the 3-storey buildings acted as a kind of base for the tower above. I like the building's outward appearance, as I do have a bit of a soft spot for brutalist architecture. As such, I might as well say that I really enjoyed a recent walk through the Barbican, but I do digress. The tower was 108 metres long by 22 metres, with a total height of 57 metres. Internally, this allowed for double-storey studio spaces and single-storey, mainly office spaces and classrooms. The tower had 4 wings, which created separate sections to the structure. The tower had square columns which were 50 by 50 centimetres wide, placed along the outer perimeter of the tower, in the north-south direction. They were reinforced concrete, with the amount of reinforcement decreasing with the building's height. Concrete girders ran in the north-south direction and were connected to the columns. For the flooring, a series of precast reinforced concrete joists ran in the east-west direction between the girders. All pretty standard really for such a type of building. It did have a glass facade, which kept it looking pretty modern. This was enabled by having the perimeter columns inset slightly from the external wall of the building. The building's load was further spread between floors via concrete internal walls. Now, due to the building's age, it wasn't designed or built with a sprinkler system in mind, and over its life it wasn't retroactively installed. Instead, the building relied on firewalls for compartmentalising any fires, and on the assumption that concrete and steel buildings can kind of shrug off a fire. We know that this is wrong. 1960s were a different time. Anywho, the building would be opened in the early 1970s, welcoming in lecturers, staff and students alike into the vast open spaces in the lower levels and the tall studio rooms in the tower. As an interesting aside, the university is world renowned as having one of the best architectural schools, ranking it 17th in the world for technical and engineering studies in 2008, and today it is the 3rd ranked architectural school in the world. Needless to say, having a not collapsed architectural facility building would be vital to the university, but you can't always get what you want, as someone once famous once said. The disaster. It is the morning of the 13th of May 2008, and the building maintenance manager has noticed a water leak in the ceiling space above the 6th floor in the tower, near the central section of the building, not too far away from its main lifts. This was around 6:30 in the morning. The manager apparently fixed the issue around 7 a.m. The leak seemed to have stopped, and around 8 a.m. students began to arrive. Shortly after, some students noticed a leak again on the 6th floor at around 8:30 in the morning. The water dripped down onto a coffee vending machine located in an architectural studio on the southwest wing, or what I like to call a bog water dispenser. Soon after, smoke started to spill out from behind the machine. Some students did attempt to try and put out the now small but ever increasing sized fire and tried to cut the power, but they were not successful. Manual fire alarms were then activated by staff and students. Quickly, the small smoky fire spread to a full-blown inferno. All inside luckily safely evacuated the building, and just over half an hour later, between 9 and 9:30 in the morning, the first firefighters arrived on scene. They began dousing the increasingly high flames and smoke bellowing out from the building. The initial first responders discovered that the compartment that was the epicenter of the fire, i.e. where the coffee machine was already fully engulfed. They evacuated the building and focused on fighting the flames externally. The fire pushed up from the 6th floor and spread uncontrolled towards the top of the building. The flames ravaged the building for 7 hours straight, burning all sections of each floor, really severely weakening the structure. At 3:45 p.m, after hours of intense fires, as all the furnishings and material within burned, the northwest wing of the building completely collapsed, crashing down onto the roof of the lower 3-storey buildings in the northwest corner. The full height of the tower had collapsed on its corner, on the northwest wing. Thankfully, no one was killed or seriously injured. Amazing when you consider that the building was the home base of sorts to roughly 3,000 students and over 800 employees. This left a large amount of people vocationally homeless. Amazingly, the university managed to repurpose an older building on campus for the architectural college, opening its doors initially in September of 2008. On top of the lack of bloodshed, most of the building's archives and collections were unscathed. But what I'm hearing you ask is, how did the concrete and steel reinforced building fail due to fire? Well, a number of case studies would be launched, and yes, the irony doesn't go unnoticed that the architectural college building was the thing that ended up collapsing. The investigation. Now, the collapse would generate a lot of interest from the architectural and engineering community of the world, as fire-induced collapses are rare occurrences, with only a few happening in the last 100 years or so. A multidisciplinary, multinational team was formed for data collection and analysis. The data was made up of architectural drawings, complete structural drawings, and original structural calculations, in addition to the thousands of photographs taken during the whole building's life, some over 30 years of history. A few different theories for the failure did exist, but what is certain is that the fire was definitely not contained. The lack of sprinklers allowed the fire to take hold, and the compartmentalisation was inadequate. If there was fire sprinklers, then it was probably likely that the fire would have been put out almost as soon as it reared its head. The intense heat caused the steel reinforcement to be susceptible to thermal expansion. This can cause a thing called spalling in the concrete reinforcement beams and columns. This is cracking along the concrete, severely reducing its strength. Interestingly, the data during the analysis phase suggested that the reinforced concrete members reached their lowest strength during the cooling phase of the fire, causing the steel to shrink. In observations from the fire and collapse of the Faculty of Architectural Building, Delft University by Engelhardt et al., posited a preliminary collapse hypothesis, in which the floor joist around the 7th floor began to deflect and sag. Now, without horizontal support over 2 floors, the columns began to pull inwards by the sagging joists. This began the collapse, which without proper support would cause a cascading failure. The building had a lack of redundancy. Failure of individual members, i.e. the weakened joists and beams and columns, meant that the building couldn't spread its load via any alternative route. Which is why proper fireproofing and fire extinguishing equipment in these incidents are so important. And sadly, the Delft Architectural College building was lacking in this. So that's my video on the Delft building collapse disaster. There's going to be a 2 on my scale, and this is what I got for my root cause analysis card. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below. This is a Plain Default production. All videos on the channel are Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike licensed. Plain Default videos are produced by me, John, in the currently quite cool corner of southern London, UK. All I have to say is thank you very much for watching, and Mr. Music, play us out please.